Hi everybody, it's Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and today I have another vintage quilt block for you. Today it is called Butterfly. This is an Evelyn Folland block from 1931, and this is all pieced with templates. So I have instructions for you in PDF format below with the pattern, the templates that you can print out and make this block along with me. So this one is intermediate to advanced in the techniques, but I think this video will help you make this block a little bit easier to put together. So I hope you'll join me and we'll make this block. Okay, here's our block. Now there are a couple of steps we need to take before we get to the sewing part, and the first thing is to make the templates. So if you go to the link in the description box below, it'll take you to the download for the pattern. Now here are the pattern templates here, and there's 3 pages and you'll want to print those off, and they're on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, so just regular copy paper. Now the outer edges, the outer lines of your templates are the cutting lines of the fabric, and the inner lines are the sewing lines, and each set of these sewing lines has a dot where they intersect in the corners, and those are important. You're going to need those to help you put the block together to match up points, otherwise it's not going to fit right, and you're going to have uneven edges on the outside. You're going to have sections that don't meet. You're going to have points that are right at the edge of the block, and you don't want that. So make sure you mark your fabric with these dots. Now there's a couple different ways you can do this with this pattern. You can trace them onto template plastic, which is what I did, or you can just make a copy and cut them out and pin them to your fabric and then cut the fabric out like you would if you're doing garment sewing. If you've ever done any garment sewing with patterns, then you know what that is like, and that would be the same thing. Now I did plastic templates for mine, and I just went to my local fabric store and bought some template plastic, and I traced the pieces onto a piece of the plastic, and let me show you here, piece B, and I wrote some notes on this for myself. I just traced around it, which this one fits this way, and cut it out. Now I didn't mark the sewing lines on here, but I did mark the dots, and what I did is I have this little tiny hole punch from paper crafting, and I punched the hole right up on those dots, and now I can use a pencil to mark through to my fabric and mark those dots. So if you use paper as your pattern instead of the plastic, just poke a hole here with in those dots with a pen, and then lift up the paper and then put a dot there with some kind of marker that's not going to show. And you're going to do this on the wrong side, but if you're using an ink pen, don't use a Sharpie, because that won't come out. You don't want to use anything permanent. So a pencil would be fine because it's just going to be a small dot, but you don't want to use anything permanent like a Sharpie marker. Okay, so now we have all our templates, and now we can cut out our fabric. So I chose for this block, I'm going to use this brown for the body, and then I'm going to use the yellow and the blue for the wings. These pieces are all mirror imaged, and piece number B is flipped and mirror imaged to make all 4 pieces. Piece number B looks like it is symmetrical, but it isn't, so it's really important to watch how you sew these on, otherwise your block isn't going to go together correctly. So watch that when you put your block together. Keep your template handy with your fabric so that you know exactly where this needs to go. Okay, let's get started. We'll just go start with, let's start with the brown, and that is piece number C. And I want to work from the wrong side of the fabric. Now C is going to be flipped like this. Okay, so I'm going to lay this down and grab my pencil and just hold it real steady and then just trace. Now I'm just using a regular pencil. This is my cutting line, so it's not going to show. And I'm just going to trace the shape. And just trace however dark you need so that you can see it. So now I'm going to flip it and trace another one, and I can butt those right up to each other if I want, but I'm going to leave a little space in case my rotary cutter slips, and then hopefully I don't ruin two pieces. We'll ruin one. Ooh, don't need that much lead out. Here we go. Okay, so piece number C. So now I can cut. Now you can cut these with your scissors, or you can use a rotary cutter, however you want to do it. I'm going to go ahead and use a rotary cutter. And I'm just going to line it up with the drawn line and cut. Okay, there is one piece C, and gotta do the last one. Okay, and I'm going to put those together and I'm going to label them. So I need to find my C tag and label them, and then I'm going to set them to the side. Okay, A is also mirror imaged, so you can cut two at a time if you want. Okay, here's my template B, and what I've done with my template, since this is the one that's flipped and rotated, I put an arrow towards the point that goes in the center of the block so that I know how to position these when I sew them together. So I'm going to lay this template down, make sure I've got it in the right position, and I'm going to go ahead and mark that arrow here on the back of the fabric. So if I flip it this way, this one should be that direction, and I'll do the same here. And I'm going to mark the dots before I cut it out, and I'm just going to take my pencil and make the dots in here. And just make sure I can see them and they look good. And then I will cut them out, and then we'll get to the background fabric. And I have a couple of hints for you on that one too. So I've just traced it twice. I've got the fabric folded over, and that should take care of everything that I need on that. So I'm going to need the longer ruler. If you look at this piece D, we have a right angle here. And so we want to put that on the straight of grain. And it'll look off on this piece because this is not cut on the straight of grain. So let me flip it this way, see if this is better. It's not down here, but it is over on the side. So let's go ahead and do this. And we need 2 of these. And mark my dots. Okay, now these are mirror imaged, so I'm going to flip it like this, and you can cut it that way if you want to save fabric, or you could, just fold your piece of fabric in half, however you want to do that. Okay, so now I have all the pieces cut out and I have them marked with all the dots that I need. And to put this block together, I've figured out for myself that it's easier to lay it out and then put the pieces together. So I'm going to start, let's just do the D pieces. They're easy. And they go in the bottom corners. So this is the wrong side. I'm going to lay them right sides up. So these two pieces go here. And let me do the A piece. The hardest pieces are the B pieces. Okay, so A, there is a sharper point that goes this direction. So we're going to go here and here. Okay, that's going to go like that and that. Let me scoot this over further. And I'm not worried about lining everything up exactly. I just want to get them facing the right direction, because these triangles, they're not symmetrical, but they're close, especially the A and the B's. Okay, let's do the B's. They're going to be the most difficult. And I think I got all of these marked on the back. Okay, so the B, the template, I marked with an arrow, which I don't think you can see that. But anyway, I marked an arrow there that tells me, and I transferred it onto these pieces. That arrow means the piece needs to go this direction, towards the center of the block, the very center. So the arrow's here. So if I turn it this way, I know this piece is going to go here. So this should also be an arrow, and that piece can go there. And now these two pieces, they're arrows here. So they go like this and like this. Okay, so we have those, and then let's do the C's. And they go down this direction. And the F's go here and here. Okay, and then the E's. Now the E's can also be confusing, but the short the short piece goes to the side. So it goes like this and like that. So they go this direction. Okay, now does that make sense? And if it makes sense to you, then you've got it right. But just follow that diagram real carefully and get it all laid out, and then start putting the pieces together. And the first thing I'm going to do is put the F and the C pieces together. Those are fairly easy to do. We're just going to put them right sides together. And I'm going to get my pin cushion, so I'll be using pins through this whole process. And here is a dot right there, and I'm going to put the pin through it and then through the dot on this piece here. So line those up, line up the raw edges, and pin. Now these two should line up too, but to make sure, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. Pin through that dot and through the one in the back piece, and pin. So now I can sew here. So I'm going to go ahead and pin these two together also, and then I will sew all these two sets together. Okay, so let's do the C and the E. Yeah, now I'm going to press these towards the dark fabric. Clip them apart. And so this is what we've got. Okay, so towards, or press towards the dark. Now I'm going to do the B and the E units. So I'm going to put them together and line up the dots just like with the other pieces. There we go. Those dots make a world of difference. I tried putting my first sample together without the dots, and I ripped out seams so many times that I finally gave up and put the dots in. So it does make a difference. Okay. All right. There's those two pieces, and I'm going to do the same to the other side. Okay, got that one done, and I'm going to press towards the blue. So now we're going to do the A and the B units. So I'm going to pick them up. Put them right sides together and match dots again. Okay, so there's that one, and actually goes that direction. And I'll do, this is the left side. Okay, I'm going to press towards the blue on this one too. Now we're going to sew the D pieces with the AB units. So that is these two pieces here. These are the ones that go on the right. So flip them over, right sides together, and match your dots again. And then do the same up here. Now the dot down here is going to be down pretty far, and that may seem strange, but that's where it belongs. So don't worry about that. And I can see the dots on the white fabric through to the right side. Okay, now there's a lot of space between here and here, and that's biased to edge. So I'm going to put in some extra pins. So I'm just going to lay that down so I'm not stretching it out of shape, and I'm going to put a couple extra pins. Just line up the raw edges. Okay, and we're going to sew. And let's do the other side. Okay, so let me show you what this looks like first. So there we have this piece. Okay, all right. So there's that section. Okay, now I'm going to press towards the white fabric just because that's the path of least resistance. So I'm going to do that. And then we'll start putting these sections together to finish the block. Here's the block laid out in sections. So we've got 3 sections at the top and 3 here at the bottom. And I'm just going to start sewing them together. So I'm going to start from the center. I'm going to go around counterclockwise. So you can go clockwise, you can start wherever you want. I would just keep a method going and stick to it and do the same thing. Start matching your points or your dots on all of your pieces. So here I have a dot and it needs to go to the dot over here. So I'm going to turn it over so I can see the dot right there. And push the pin through, line it up, and then pin. And I'll do the same on this side. There's the dot there. And the dot right there. And then pin. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and lay this down, and I'm going to put in an extra pin in here since that's kind of a long expanse, and then also here. So there's the first 2 sections put together. So this is the top left corner, here's the center, and here is the edge right there. So I'm going to lay those down and I'm going to press towards the blue fabric. Now I'm going to take that section that I just finished and I'm going to sew it to the next section down. Now I've got dog ears here. I'm not going to worry about them right now. I will trim those off in a little bit. So I'm going to go through the point and find the dot on this side. Line up the edges of the fabric right here. But I want that want that pin straight. I don't want it. There we go. Okay, and then here, there's the point right there. And I want to find the dot on this side. I'm saying point, but I'm meaning dot. I want to match these dots up again. So there we go, right there. And then pin, and then I've got this long expanse, so I'm going to lay it down and pin that. Okay, now we'll sew, and I'm going to go ahead and trim off that dog ear. And a little closer there. Okay, I'm going to trim off this dog ear. Okay, so we've got that much. So this is half of the block, so I'm going to lay this down, and then I'm going to work on the other half of the block. So I'm going to go back up to the top and work clockwise. So that means this piece has to go to this one. And I'm going to match my dots again. So I've got the pin through that dot, let's put it through to this one here. Right there. And line everything up. And go to this side, this dot to that one right there. Okay, and then I'm going to put a pin in the middle. Okay. I'm going to trim off these dog ears here. It just makes it easier. Okay. Okay, so now I've got that much done. And I'm going to trim off these dog ears up here. And press. And I'm going to press towards this unit up here. Okay, now I need to sew the center unit on. So I'm going to turn that right sides together. Match the dots again. Yep, that one's there. And this dot. And this dot should wind up right here by this, where this point is, where the blues cross over the yellow. That should be where it is. Should be right about there. And that is where it is. So okay. And that's ready to sew. So there is the other half of the block. So I'm going to press this piece. I think I'll press it towards the center, and then we'll put this do the last seam, and the block will be put together. So there are the two halves of the block. So I'm going to put them right sides together. I'm going to match dots on both ends again. So there's one there, and there's one there. Just like that. Pin, and then go to this end and do the same thing. That dot to that one. Pin that, and now I need to match the centers. Let me get rid of this dog ear here. Okay, so if I open it to the right sides, you see we've got all these points here and all of these points here. So those two points, sections need to match. So on the outside, I'm going to go right through that center point of the yellow piece right there. Go down just a little bit more. Yeah, right there. And then go through the yellow piece on the other side, that point right there. Go through that one. So now they're all matched up. Okay, now when we get to this section when we're sewing, there is a lot of seams right there. So take your time and go through there, and I'm going to put in a couple more pins. But you notice how well these are all matching up, and that has to do with the points that we've put in there. Nothing is too large, nothing's too small. Everything's just going together really well. So alrighty, here we go. Last seam. Okay, this is the hardest section. It wasn't too bad though. Okay, let's see how that looks. Looks pretty good. Okay. So here we go. So I'm going to adjust the camera and lay this out on the ironing mat, and we'll take a look at it. Okay, so here's the block, and I need to press this last seam here. Now this seam, you know, we've got a whole lot going on here. We've got 8 seams coming together right here in the center, and to kind of spread out that bulk, I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to trim any dog ears that I have left, and do this one here. And that one. And there are others that I'll get to here in a little bit. Okay. And then let me press it flat. And now I'm going to press this open, just to kind of ease some of the bulk from the center. So make sure your iron is good and hot, and use steam if you want, or starch, or whatever you do. Get that one down flat again. And I'm going to use a little bit of steam here. Okay, so now I'm going to trim away dog ears that are forming. And these little pieces here, I'm going to trim them because I don't need that extra bulk in the quilt. I think that looks pretty pretty good. So let's flip it over. And this turned out pretty well, I think. So let me give it a final press from the right side. Okay, and you may need to square this up. I can see I've got kind of a bow right there. And since I use steam in the center, I want to use steam through the whole block. And my iron's starting to spit a little bit. But there we go. There is the butterfly block. Okay, so that is it for the butterfly block. This one was quite a bit different than the other blocks, but I think it's a really pretty block, and I'm glad I worked on figuring out how to put this one together. It was kind of a challenge, you know, doing all the drafting work and then figuring out how to put it together so that everything came together smoothly. It took quite a while. It took me a couple weeks of working, you know, every other day on it to figure out how to get this put together. But I'm glad I worked on this, and I'm real happy with the results. So I hope you'll give this block a try and let me know how it turns out for you. So if you like this video, please click that like button, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and click that notification bell so you'll be notified when the next video comes up. And in the meantime, I hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in the next video.
Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links. And to keep up with my latest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.